This happened a few months ago. I was in my small apartment, working late on a project. I thought being a freelancer would give me freedom, but I felt really lonely that night. The snow was piling up outside. I settled in for a long night of work when I heard the howling wind. At first, it was just background noise. I focused on my screen. Then I heard it. A soft knock at the door. I thought it was my imagination. I shrugged it off. A couple of minutes later, the knocking came again. My heart skipped a beat. I looked up at the door. There was nobody there. I was sure of it. The storm raged on for the next day. I barely stepped outside, too wrapped up in my work. By evening, the knocking returned. It was louder this time, more urgent. I walked to the door, my hands shaking as I reached for the doorknob. I opened it slowly, but the hallway was empty. Just darkness and the flickering light at the other end. I noticed something strange outside. The snow had been disturbed, forming odd shapes. It almost looked like letters pressed into the snow, but I couldn't quite make them out. A chill crawled up my spine, but I tried to laugh it off. Maybe kids were out playing, but deep down I felt something was off. Something. The days blurred together. I heard the knocking again. This time it felt more desperate. I couldn't concentrate. My heart raced as the shadows outside twisted and moved. Every time I looked, nothing was there. I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture of the bizarre shapes in the snow. I felt scared. The markings felt wrong, like they were meant for me. One night, I was working late again. That's when I saw it. A figure standing outside my window. I couldn't see it clearly, but it felt like it was looking back at me. My heart raced. I didn't want to call anyone. Instead, I stared at it, willing it to move. Then I blinked, just for a second, and when I looked back, I felt the cold air rush in. My door was wide open. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. There was nothing but empty space outside. But the knocking got louder. It seemed to mock my fear. I moved toward the door, telling myself it was just the wind. But deep down, I knew something was there. I reached for the doorknob, and then I heard a voice. It was soft and eerie, asking me, "Why did you let me in?" I turned quickly, but no one was there. I looked back at the door, still open. The knocking stopped, replaced by a chilling silence. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding. I didn't understand what was happening. I felt a wave of cold wash over me. The last thing I remembered was that whisper hanging in the air. I never did figure out what it meant, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed forever that night. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the old building had me jumping, and every gust of wind seemed to carry whispers meant just for me. By morning, I was exhausted. My reflection in the bathroom mirror showed dark circles under my eyes. I had to clear my head, so I decided to take a walk outside. The snow had stopped falling, but the world looked different. Everything felt muffled, like sound was trapped under layers of ice. I stepped outside, my boots crunching on the fresh snow. I scanned the area, half hoping to find answers to the strange occurrences. The shapes in the snow had melted away, leaving nothing but a smooth white blanket. As I wandered, I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A shape flitted between the trees. I turned quickly, but I found nothing, just the wind whispering through the branches. I shook my head, telling myself I was imagining things, not wanting to go back home just yet. I walked to a small cafe nearby. I ordered coffee to perk myself up, needing something to clear the fog in my mind. As I waited, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced around the room, but only a few people were seated at the tables, lost in their phones or books. Then I remembered the eerie voice. "Why did you let me in?" It echoed in my mind, making my stomach churn. I had to find out who or what was haunting me. I opened my phone, pulling up the photo I took of the strange marks in the snow. As I stared at it, a sickening jolt struck me. In the picture, I could make out distinct letters formed at the edge of my porch, words carved into the snow as if something forced them to emerge. My heart raced as I read them. "Come find me." A chill gripped my spine. It felt like a taunt, a challenge. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I decided right then that I would go where the voice led me. After finishing my coffee, I headed back to my apartment, feeling a mix of dread and determination. Once inside, I grabbed a flashlight and put on my jacket. The sun was slowly fading, and dusk began to creep in. I thought of the figure I'd seen outside my window, and I felt a swell of fear. But I couldn't turn back now. It was too late. I stepped outside, the air biting at my skin. I began to walk around my building, searching for anything unusual. My breath fogged up in the cold. Then, in the distance, I saw something out of place. A shadow standing among the trees near the edge of the property. I squinted, trying to make it out. That's when it turned. I gasped, my heart racing as I took a step back. It wasn't just any shadow. It looked like a person. I could see the silhouette clearly now, and the fear tightened around my chest. I felt the urge to run, but I was rooted to the spot. I needed to know who it was. Then it raised a hand and pointed directly at me. I could barely breathe. Panic surged through me, but I stepped forward instinctively. I needed answers. As I moved closer, the shadow seemed to shift, fading into the trees. The last thing I saw was the snow beneath my feet beginning to swirl and move, as if it were alive. Then everything went dark. I woke up gasping, the cold air biting at my skin. I was lying on the ground, the world around me still cloaked in darkness. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust. I was outside, surrounded by the trees I had just seen the shadow in. Panic rose in my throat. How did I get here? I scrambled to my feet, my heart racing. The flashlight lay a few feet away, half buried in the snow. I stumbled over to grab it, relief washing over me as the beam pierced the gloom. As I turned the light around, my stomach twisted. The air was unnaturally still, as if the world was holding its breath. Hello? My voice felt small and insignificant. I could barely hear it over the pounding of my heart. No response came, but I sensed movement just beyond the trees. It was that same feeling, the sensation of being watched. My skin crawled with dread. With trembling hands, I swept the flashlight across the area. The shadows danced, playing tricks on my eyes. Then something caught my attention. Footprints leading deeper into the woods, contrasting sharply against the untouched snow. They were small, almost childlike. I wasn't sure I should follow them, but my feet seemed to have a mind of their own. I stepped carefully, each crunch of snow echoing like a warning. The trees loomed over me, their branches twisted like skeletal fingers. My flashlight flickered, and I felt a shiver run through me. Was something in there with me? Suddenly I heard it. A soft giggle, light and airy. I froze, every instinct screaming for me to turn back, but I couldn't. I wanted to confront whatever was happening, to understand what was drawing me in. I followed the sound, even though fear squeezed my chest. As I moved deeper, the giggle transformed into something else, a whisper. Come find me. It was the same voice. My skin prickled with recognition, and I squinted into the darkness, searching for the source. Then I realized something. The footprints were heading toward a clearing. My pulse quickened. I emerged into the open, and the air felt different, charged, electric. In the center stood a small figure, shrouded in shadows. It wasn't entirely human. I took a cautious step forward. "Who are you?" I called, my voice steadier now. The figure turned slightly, enough for me to see glimmers of eyes reflecting the faint light. "Why did you let me in?" The voice echoed in the clearing, sending chills down my spine. It wasn't just a question. It felt like an accusation. Before I could respond, the figure began to dissolve into the darkness, leaving only tension hanging in the air. I felt the ground shift again, as if something was stirring beneath me. I staggered back, fear washing over me like a cold wave. I turned to flee, but the path I had come from vanished, replaced by towering trees that seemed to twist and lean closer. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices swirling around me. I was trapped, isolated, all connections severed. "Help!" I screamed, but my voice was swallowed whole. I spun around, desperate and terrified. That's when I saw it, a flickering light emerging from the trees, calling to me. My heart raced as I took a hesitant step toward it, uncertain if it was salvation or something far worse. I moved toward the flickering light, each step treacherous in the snow. My breath formed clouds in the icy air, visible reminders of my fear. The cold dug deeper into my skin, but I pushed on, drawn by the glow that promised something beyond the terror. The closer I got, the clearer the light became. It flickered like a candle, softly illuminating a space between the trees. I could almost make out figures flitting about in the shadows, their shapes blending with the flickering light, like ghosts dancing in a dream. "Is anyone there?" I called out again, my voice trembling but louder this time. The flickering stopped, and silence enveloped me. I squinted toward the source, but the shadows were thick, hiding more than they revealed. Suddenly, the light burst back into life, brighter than before, and I saw them, small, pale faces peeking from behind the trees. Their eyes glinted in the glow, unnervingly wide, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and something darker. I took a step back, uncertainty gripping my stomach. Who were they? Were they the source of the whispers? I felt a chill not just from the cold, but from the knowledge that I was being watched, not by one entity, but by many. "Why are you here?" one of the figures called out, its voice echoing with a high-pitched sing-song quality. "You shouldn't have followed." Words faltered in my mouth. I was just trying to find out what's happening. Laughter erupted from them, bright and mocking. "What's happening? Everything is happening!" The laughter faded, leaving just the echoes of their glee hanging in the air. Something inside me snapped. "What do you want?" I shouted, a mix of desperation and defiance. "Want?" the voice answered, its tone shifting. "We want to play, but you're not allowed. You let me in. You should have known better." As the words sank in, panic crested. The figure who spoke stepped forward into the light. There was something otherworldly in its features, sharp teeth grinning wide, too wide. I staggered back, searching for an escape. The others advanced, their shapes twisting as they moved, filling the space around me. The woods seemed to close in, branches clawing at the air, and every flicker of light felt like a warning. I needed to run. But where? I turned frantically, searching for a path, any path. Then I remembered the footprints. I looked down at the snow, but it was unmarked now, just my futile breath drifting toward the stars above. The only way out was forward, through the creatures who now surrounded me. In a sudden rush, I bolted toward the closest gap between them. The laughter erupted again, ringing in my ears as they trailed behind, a haunting chorus that echoed my fear. "Come play," they called, voices twisting into something sinister. I pushed through the branches, heart pounding, breath coming in ragged gasps. I needed to escape this nightmare, needed to find solid ground. But just as I burst through into what seemed like a new clearing, the air around me shifted. That's when I saw it. A large, ancient tree, its gnarled roots twisted like fingers grasping at the earth. At its base sat an object glinting in the faint light. I approached, drawn against my better judgment. What could it be? My fingers brushed against the surface, and a surge of cold rushed through me. A vision flashed, a face, familiar yet unknown, and in its eyes I saw an endless abyss. Now I understood. This wasn't just a game. It was a trap. I stumbled back, panic clawing at my throat as I realized I was about to uncover something I might not be able to handle. The ground beneath me felt unstable, like I was on the cusp of some frozen precipice. I stumbled back from the tree, my heart racing. The glinting object seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, mocking my fear. I couldn't afford to linger here, not with those figures still behind me, their laughter ringing like a death knell. I turned, ready to bolt. But just as I did, I saw a flicker from the corner of my eye. It was the tree again. The object at its base flickered as if alive, pulling at my gaze, tempting me to look closer. I fought against the allure, willing my limbs to move, but they felt weighted, as if I was being pulled deeper into the nightmare. "Come play," a voice squeaked from behind me, sharp and piercing. I spun around to see the closest figure, its features sharp and angular, a grin stretching unnaturally wide. "Don't you want to know the truth?" I took a step back, then another, my mind racing. What truth? My instinct screamed for me to escape. I turned and dashed in the opposite direction, plunging deeper into the trees. Twigs snapped underfoot, each sound a reminder of how alone I was. I threw quick glances over my shoulder, but the figures were merely shadows, flitting amid the trees, their laughter melding into the wind. As I ran, the snow began to fall harder, swirling around me like a living thing. It obscured my vision, thickening the air. I was lost. I couldn't tell which direction I came from or where I was headed. Fear twisted inside me, knotting tighter with each step. Suddenly I tripped over something, and the world went sideways. I tumbled into the snow, breath knocked out of me. As I gasped for air, a strange haze enveloped my vision. I could see the snowflakes suspended in the air, swirling as if they were alive. And then, through the haze, I saw another figure, its silhouette standing tall against the chaos of the storm. It wasn't one of the creatures. It looked human. I blinked rapidly, fighting to regain focus. Had I finally found someone? "Help!" I shouted, my voice barely audible over the wind. "Please!" The figure stepped closer, and I caught a glimpse of its face, pale and hollow, eyes shadowed by something dark. It reached toward me, and something in its gaze warned me to pull back. "Why are you here?" it asked, the voice eerily calm, devoid of emotion. I was just trying to get away." "They're coming," I stammered, glancing back toward the direction I'd fled. The laughter still echoed, distant but ever present. "They won't stop for you," the figure said flatly, its tone chilling. "You need to see the game." With that, the blizzard intensified, and the shadows crept closer, merging into a thick fog that stifled any sense of direction. The world around me darkened, and I felt my heart sink into a void of despair. "Wait!" I screamed. But the words barely escaped my lips before everything around me blurred into nothingness. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat, gasping for breath. The blizzard had paused, but the silence was intimidating. I blinked, trying to clear my vision. I was no longer in the forest, but lying on a familiar wooden floor, the smell of burnt coffee in the air. My heart raced. I was back in my living room. My confusion washed over me. I scrambled to my feet, looking around. The walls were adorned with photographs of my family, and the coffee table held my worn-out journals. But there was something off. The room felt eerily quiet, as if all sounds had been snuffed out. I reached for my phone, but it wasn't where I left it. Panic crept in again, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. I stepped cautiously to the window. Frost clung to the glass, and beyond it, the storm still howled, a fierce wind swaying the nearby trees. I leaned closer, squinting through the blur of snowflakes. That's when I saw them. Shadows darting amongst the trees, twisted figures mimicking the playfulness of lost children. Their laughter echoed in my ears, taunting my fear from what felt like a lifetime ago. With a surge of adrenaline, I tore my gaze away from the window. I wasn't safe. I needed to get out and check that I was truly alone. Slowly, I moved to the front door, each creak of the floorboard seeming deafening in the silence. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard it, a faint scratching sound coming from somewhere deep within the house. My heartbeat quickened. I paused, holding my breath. It was just the wind, I told myself. But the scratching persisted, rhythmic and unyielding. "Hello?" I called out, voice shaking. "Is someone there?" No answer. My hand hovered over the doorknob, fighting the urge to flee, but curiosity clawed at me. I had to know what was happening. I turned away from the door, heading toward the hallway, the scratching growing louder. Each step felt more uncertain. I approached a slightly ajar door at the end of the hall. The light flickered as I peeked inside, illuminating what looked like my basement, dark and filled with shadows. Suddenly, the door creaked wider, pushing open by an unseen force. I stumbled backward, heart racing. I wanted to run, but an urgency gripped me, urging me forward. I edged closer, the scratching now echoing in the confined space. That's when I saw it. A figure crouched in the corner, shrouded in darkness, its back toward me. The air turned icy, and dread settled in my chest. A thin whisper floated through the air, blending with the scratching. "Come play." "No!" I gasped, the fear overwhelming me. I turned to escape, but froze, realizing there was no way back. The hallway behind me melted into darkness, an abyss swallowing all light. I tore toward the figure, desperate for answers, but my limbs felt like lead. It turned slowly, revealing a face that looked hauntingly familiar. My reflection stared back, but it wore a twisted grin. I stumbled back, realization dawning with horror. "Who are you?" I choked out, every instinct screaming to run. The grin widened, revealing teeth sharp and cruel. "I am you, but freer than you'll ever be." And as the blizzard howled outside, a sinister chuckle echoed in the corners of my mind, leaving me questioning which reality was truly mine. I stood paralyzed, my breath hitching in my throat. The twisted version of myself chuckled again, the sound chilling to the bone. "You've ignored me for too long," it said, its voice disturbingly sweet. "But now you can't escape." I tried to scream, but the sound got lost in the suffocating air. I felt the walls closing in, shadows lengthening around me. My body, still unwilling to obey, stepped backward, instinctively wanting to put distance between us. The basement felt alive, pulsing like a heart. "Why are you here?" I managed to croak out, my voice barely a whisper. "All those dreams you buried. All the parts of you that you sacrificed to fit in." It hissed, eyes glinting with a hunger I didn't understand. "I embody your truth. The one you refuse to face." With a sudden burst of clarity, I remembered the blizzard, the escape I sought in the woods. "You're not real!" I shouted defiantly. The fear made me bolder, and I stepped forward. "You're just a figment of my imagination." The figure tilted its head, amusement flickering across its face. "Am I? And yet here I stand. Wouldn't you rather embrace what you've hidden?" I could feel its presence looming closer, a weight pressing heavily against my chest. Memories flickered like old film reels. Choices I had made, paths I had walked away from. I couldn't let it ensnare me. I turned on my heel, forcing myself to run. My feet hit the basement floor, urgency propelling me up the stairs. I reached the door, but it wouldn't budge. I slammed my shoulder against it, panic lacing my movements. "Let me out!" I yelled, but the door remained resolute, as if it had never allowed entry. "Where do you think you're going?" The figure's laughter echoed, morphing into something dark, with a ferocity I didn't know I had. I pulled at the doorknob, desperation fueling my strength. Finally, it relented, swinging open with a bang. I lunged through, the darkness of the basement receding as I stumbled into the hallway. But everything changed when I turned back. The basement door had vanished, replaced by a solid wall. There was no escape. My breathing quickened, and I started pacing. The blizzard raged outside, but now it felt distant, as if I were trapped in a tunnel. I needed to find my phone. I darted into the living room, but nothing felt right. The family pictures looked askew, their faces morphing every time I blinked. Then I heard it, a childish giggle, light and airy, cutting through my panic. It seemed to resonate from the kitchen. I hesitated, but the promise of clarity drew me in. I stepped closer, making my way through the darkened hallway. Each step felt like a countdown. That's when I saw her. A small figure sat at the kitchen table, hunched over something. My pulse raced. Was it real? "Who are you?" I asked, voice shaking. She turned, and my heart splintered. It was me, but younger, eyes glinting with mischief. "Come see what I found," the girl said, beckoning with a crooked finger. As she leaned forward, something ancient and powerful rippled through me. I felt my own spirit pulling between two worlds, the past and the present, my truth and the lie I had lived. "Don't," I warned. But I was already drawn in, stepping closer to discover what lay in the darkness of my own history. And that's when everything went white. When the light faded, I was no longer standing in my kitchen. Instead, I found myself in a vast, open field blanketed with snow. The blizzard swirled around me, angry and relentless. The cold attacked my skin like tiny needles, forcing me to shiver. I looked around, panicked. Hello? My voice trembled, choking on the sound of the howling wind. The field felt familiar, yet foreign, as if it were a memory I once cherished but had forgotten. I took a hesitant step forward, my boots crunching on the snow. Then I saw her again. The little girl. She stood at the edge of the field, her back to me, gazing into the storm. Her dark hair danced wildly in the wind, and I felt an undeniable urge to reach out to her. But something held me back, an instinct telling me to remain cautious. "I'm not sure I want to follow you anymore," I called out. My voice barely carried through the chaos around us. The girl pivoted, a sly smile gracing her lips. "Why not? Aren't you curious about what I found? It's just a little further." A tight feeling knotted my stomach. I thought I was safe at home." She giggled, a sound so innocent, yet so off. "Home? This is where we belong. Only here can we find the truth." The word truth echoed in my mind, twisting deeper into my consciousness. I felt like I was caught in a web of my own making. Staring at her, I began to realize the girl was not just a remnant of my past. She was a reflection of everything I had hidden, the fears, the choices, the pain. "Wait!" I shouted. But she darted forward, sliding playfully down a hill of snow. I moved to follow, my heart racing. As I reached the top, I stopped short. At the bottom of the hill lay a small wooden box half buried in the snow. It glistened with frost, though something about it felt alive. I felt the urge to pull it free, the dread and curiosity battling within me. What secrets did it hold? "Open it!" the girl urged, now standing beside me. Her excitement was palpable. Before I could respond, I reached down, my fingers brushing against the cold wood. Just as I was about to lift the lid, a flash of dark clouds roiling in the distance caught my attention. The storm intensified, and a deep rumble echoed through the air. The ground shook as if it too was warning me. "This isn't just a game," I said, fear clawing at my throat. "What's in there?" Her expression turned serious, and for the first time I saw something else in her eyes, something raw and unnerving. "You have to decide, the past or the future." Just as I was about to respond, a chilling wind swept through the field, knocking me off balance. I stumbled, trying to regain my footing. I had a choice to make right there, standing at the edge of the abyss. And then everything changed. The box began to glow, illuminating the darkened storm around us. "Choose! But beware! Once opened, you cannot close it." I took a breath, my heart pounding in my chest as I faced the decision that would unravel the truth buried within me. And just as I reached for the lid again, the world started to darken once more. That's when I heard a voice, deep and commanding. "You've summoned me." Then, everything turned to chaos. The ground trembled beneath my feet, and a sense of unease washed over me like a cold wave. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beyond the edges of the storm. The girl's face twisted into an expression that felt both inviting and threatening. The voice echoed again, deep and resonant, each word sending vibrations through the air. "You've summoned me." I turned to see shadows forming in the swirling snow, dark figures that clawed their way out of the tempest. They were vague at first, like silhouettes trying to manifest but shrouded in the chaos. "Who are you?" I managed to shout above the growing howling wind, my heart racing. "I am the guardian of truths," the voice said, drawing closer. "And you have opened the door." The little girl gazed at me with eyes wide and unblinking, her smile now unsettling. "You opened the box before you even touched it. This is what you wanted." "No!" I protested, feeling disoriented. "I didn't want any of this." The shadows grew clearer, revealing faces twisted in anguish and despair. Their hollow eyes seemed to plead for release, but there was no compassion in their gaze, only the weight of unspoken stories. Each soul felt like a piece of a puzzle I didn't know how to assemble. The girl stepped closer, her small hand reaching out toward me. "You have to choose. Let them go, or take their pain upon yourself. You don't want to carry it forever." I felt the weight of her words. I had spent so long running from my past, denying the emotions that clung like frost to the skin. The blizzard raged on, but my world had narrowed down to this choice standing before me: save myself or save them. "Open the box!" she urged again, her voice rising with urgency. My hands trembled as I reached for the snow-blanketed wooden box, the glow pulsing rhythmically now. I fought against my instincts, the primal fear clawing up my spine, yet I found myself compelled to let go of the fear. What would happen if I didn't? The shadows closed in, whispering mournful secrets in a language I couldn't grasp. I felt dizzy, the world swirling around me. Just as I was about to grasp the lid, a piercing scream sliced through the air. It wasn't just sound, it was pure anguish that chilled me to the core. "Please, don't let them take me." One of the shadows reached out, arms outstretched as if begging for freedom. I recoiled, sending a shock of horror racing through me. Finally, I yanked my hand back. "No, I can't!" I yelled, closing my eyes against the madness surrounding me. The screeches grew louder, drowning out the blizzard's ferocity. I opened my eyes to find the girl staring at me, her expression now somber. "You have to decide. You can save them or risk being lost in your own pain forever." Panic swept over me as the realization set in. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about something much bigger. And then everything turned dark again. The wind howled louder, and I felt myself being pulled into the void. I was losing control. Just as I thought I was being swallowed whole, a flash lit up the storm, leaving me breathless. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of the box tipping over, spilling its contents into the blizzard. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in the shadows that felt all too familiar. "Stay close!" It was a voice I recognized, but as the darkness swallowed everything, I couldn't tell if it was a warning or invitation. I jolted awake, heart racing, frost clinging to my skin. The storm outside painted the windows with patterns of white, but I was no longer afraid. Somehow, I sensed the danger had lifted, as if I had crossed an unseen threshold. The oppressive weight of the shadows that stalked me had dissipated, leaving a lingering unease. I sat up, taking in my surroundings. I was back in my apartment, the familiar comfort of the cluttered space surrounding me. The photographs still hung crookedly on the walls, and my laptop sat quietly on the table. But the world felt different now. The silence hummed with a tension I couldn't quite grasp. Gingerly, I rose to my feet, every creak of the floorboards echoing like a reminder of my experience in the storm. I glanced at the door, half expecting it to swing open, reintroducing the chaos I had only just escaped. Instead, only a steady wind howled outside, an eerie calm settling over the realm I had long considered home. As I moved to the window, tentatively pulling back the curtain, the snowfall had stopped. The world outside lay pristine, untouched by the darkness that had haunted me for weeks. Yet deep down, I felt a chill that wasn't from the cold. I noticed the trees were bare, their skeletal branches stark against a leaden sky, almost rhythmic as if they were swaying, beckoning me closer. But that wasn't all. Among the ground near the edge of my property, new shapes emerged in the snow, familiar and unsettling. I squinted harder, and my breath caught. The footprints, the very ones I had followed into the woods, were there, leading to nothing. Almost like a path abandoned or a projection of my fears laid bare. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something dart behind the tree line. Frozen with indecision, I blinked and shook my head. It couldn't be. I had faced my fears. I had endured and survived. As if sensing my hesitation, a giggle broke the silence. My blood ran cold. I recognized that sound. Walking toward the door, I felt both drawn to the noise and terrified of what awaited me. My mind raced. Was this a trap? Had I truly escaped? Or was I merely in the eye of the storm, waiting for the winds to whip back around? With a trembling hand, I turned the knob, allowing the door to creak open. The cold air swept in, brushing against my cheeks with a sharp bite. I stepped into the snow, fresh flakes crunching beneath my boots, the silence of the winter swallowed by the echo of laughter. "Why did you let me in?" came the whisper, chillingly familiar and distant at once. I turned, heart racing, searching for the source. Eyes squinted against the bright expanse, I hesitated, caught in a web of uncertainty. A childlike figure dashed between the trees, a familiar silhouette. "Don't you want to play?" The voice rang out again, taunting, a melody of innocence piercing through the quiet crispness of winter. "Who are you?" I shouted, though my words felt lost in the vastness, vanishing like smoke in the wind. "What are you afraid of?" came the voice again, sorrowful yet joyous. "You let me in. Now come find me." Stubborn determination replaced fear as I took a cautious step forward. The shadows remained, shapes wrapping around me, tempting me to engage with the questions I had buried deep within myself. I could feel the frost of uncertainty in my veins, yet I couldn't turn away. Just like that night in the woods, when curiosity had led my steps to the unknown, I found myself tracing those footprints, compelled by the past I thought I had locked away. But now, clarity swirled within me, a realization that perhaps escaping meant confronting the questions I had feared to answer. Was it supernatural? Was it all in my head? My feet moved, propelled by a force I still didn't fully understand. Somewhere in the depths of my consciousness, I recognized it wasn't about finding an answer, but about embracing the ambiguity of my own truth, whatever form that might take. Whether it was a game or something more profound, I didn't know. I took another step, leaving behind the warmth of the apartment as I sank deeper into the snow. "I'm coming," I called out, my voice steady. The figure danced like a flame ahead, flickering between reality and the haunting past. I stepped forward, heart wide open to whatever lay beyond the trees. I was ready, even if the truth remained shrouded in mystery. Whatever awaited me, I wouldn't run again. I would face it, whether it was the echoes of the past or the shadows of the storm that lingered just beyond reach.